Well, what do you know, kidlets? I didn't quite get to 9 o'clock. I was trying. I started early with noodles. I guess I didn't get bored. I was going to get distracted by chat and then lose my poop entirely. We don't want that, do we? Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us today. Would be the 4th day of September, or so they tell us. Yeah, I've been doing Freaky Freaks for so long that I do it every morning, and so now I get used to having a little music underneath me, like a little music bed, and so now when it's not there, I feel kind of naked. Well, I mean, I am. Well, let's not go there. That makes people uncomfortable. I got my coffee this morning. I hope you have yours. And I got stuff for you this morning. You may be wondering about the title of today's episode. Your days are numbered. Our days are numbered. And is that meant to be cryptic? I don't know. I've had some thoughts this week. I mentioned one of the things during the Freaky Freaks, and again, if you are unfamiliar with that, every morning at 4:20 on the West Coast on Rockfin Premium, slip over there. Great Baldini is the name of the channel, and if you slip in, you can catch it live, you can catch it on the replay. Do a session, usually it's pretty brief, 15, 20 minutes, something like that, of sonic healing, if you want to call it that. Certainly sonic exploration, using a variety of tuning forks from solfeggio and the chakra points, as well as a singing bowl and some other accoutrements. It is very entertaining and enlightening, to be sure, and a number of things come out of it. Certainly, as I try with this, as with most things that are interesting to me, I try to find some meaning in it. Perhaps it's a form of pareidolia. There is noodles, yes, there is noodles from time to time. I've been introducing short, brief noodles on the Freaky Freaks. But like most things, I try to find some meaning in it. I'm big on pattern recognition, that sort of thing. And it certainly, as I began going through the process of doing the tuning forks and listening closely, both with my ears and with my other senses, getting a sense that again, all things are interconnected. I think this is a philosophical viewpoint in which we can all, to some degree, agree that there is an interconnectedness of all things. And I have, of late, introduced the idea that there may, in fact, be something more. That there might be something to the effect of what we see with electricity and magnetism. And that these waveforms appear at right angles to each other, at incidence angles such that they are interactive, much like electricity and magnetism, in a 1-to-1 ratio, the material and the immaterial, and acting upon one another in a way that is the verisimilitude of what we see in other forms of physics and nature. That's why it appeals to me. It's got some basis in reality, and not the reality, the false reality that we're presented, but the real reality that we can see and sense around us. And so as I consider these things, I try again to find meaning, coherence in these things. And these are related to life. I mentioned during the Freaky Freaks, for example, that I try to consider that no failure is really a failure. It's simply an opportunity for growth and to see something that didn't work, right? You try to break it down afterwards and see what went wrong and what your part was, be honest about it. What did I play in that, and how could it have gone differently? That's sometimes the more difficult aspect, is to be really honest about what's going on there. But I try to look at these things, and as I mentioned, one of the things that I used to justify the very expensive habit of golf was that I found all these little life lessons in there. Keep your eye on the ball, right? Keep your head down. If you try to follow the ball after stroking, don't get all purrant on me, but after you swing at the ball, keep your head down and keep in position. If you try to get ahead of yourself and see what's going to happen, see the result, well, it'll lead to a poor result. golf is, again, not a game played against other people. It's played against you in the course, and it's not really a matter of how well you play. It's how well you play when you play badly. There's so many things I learned about golf, or life from golf, and those are just a few. But I try to learn about life from all of life, even the bad parts. In fact, sometimes especially the bad or more challenging parts. And I learned a lot about myself and a lot about other people. In fact, some of those people are here today, and I want to quickly, again, just say, hey, welcome, friends, and a couple of people. I mentioned this earlier. The last few weeks have been, in particular, difficult. Things have took unexpected turns, and there have been some folks who have been unwavering in their love and support and their stalwart. Just their love and compassion, and especially Jenny Spark and David Reif. You guys are awesome. But Flat Accord Music and Ronald Lee and Francis and Michelle, and you guys are awesome. Daryl Davis, Michelle Waldo, you guys are just the best. And thank you for your support and your love. So, let's see where I want to. There's a few things I want to kind of put in here. One of these things, again, is not to be, overly morbid. Well, I suppose I should put this in here. So you guys know that I've been dealing with all kinds of medical issues, right, and going through all kinds of poking and prodding and tests and that sort of stuff. And typically what happens, right, what the frustrating part when you have an undiagnosed medical condition, as always seems the case, right, this is, I'm going to make now, Baldini's postulate, which is that any intermittent issue, whether that is technological or mechanical, right, if it's your car, or physiological, if it's your body, any intermittent issue, no matter the frequency, will not do the thing when you go to the mechanic. It's just not going to happen. And same occurs when you go to the doctor. One of the things that happens when you go to the doctor, of course, you have a list of things you want to talk about. And for some reason, when you get there, they just escape you. You're like, duh. It happens to everyone I know. I don't know, something they put in the air, maybe, I don't know, when you get there. But, yeah, so there have been a variety of tests on that sort of stuff. So one of the things that becomes frustrating, right, is, especially for me, is when you have this undiagnosed medical condition, when you get all these test results back, and what they indicate is that you're in perfect health, like preternaturally perfect health. There's nothing wrong with you. Well, yeah, there is. I mean, certainly I have the indications and presentations. We just don't know what that is. And there's a few numbers that have been off here and there on tests and nothing to write home about. Some of those have been present for a long time. What happens, though, generally, is that you rule a bunch of things out, but when you do that, you rule some things out and other things in. And so typically what happens is you take out kind of most of the bell curve, and the stuff at either end is either not bad at all or really bad. And so, this week got some things back and saw some things that were unsettling. We don't know much more than that. In fact, I haven't even really, I saw the test results and haven't spoken to the doctor yet, but those results are, meaningful. And bring you face to face with, the possibility of mortality. And this is certainly something which, again, people go, oh, they get all scared. But one of the things I want to bring up here is I think that from my position, right, I think that especially in Western society, that we are have a preternatural fear of death. That we should, I think it's unusual, because death is as natural a part of life as life itself. I mean, okay, let's point this out. That there are some things, right, that would indicate to me that the world was made perfect and then something bad happened. For example, it is written in our heart that we expect there to be some sense of justice and fair play in the world, and yet there is not a single shred of evidence that has ever happened, right? But yet we expect it. Similarly, we seem to be made to live forever, and in that we expect to, and there is something so tragic and so inherently wrong about death that it seems unnatural. And so we tend to run from it with everything that we have, and we avoid it at all costs. We avoid talking about it. We have euphemisms for it, passing on. We even try against, those who have, what we call people of faith or whatever, those people who call themselves Christians. Even many of them try to give themselves a comforting lie that, again, I hope I'm not stepping on anybody's toes here or, slaying any sacred cows, but no, this idea that you're going to go directly to heaven and get your reward immediately is absolutely not in Scripture. There's nothing in there to indicate that you would go directly to your reward. In fact, everything indicates other than that, right? That there is a waiting period and that there is a judgment in which everything happens at the end. But we like to make ourselves believe that when someone passes on that they're suddenly in a better place. Now, they may be in a better place. It might be Abraham's bosom or paradise, Valhalla, but it doesn't seem to be heaven if you describe that way. Again, not to step on anybody's toes, and I didn't mean, not trying to get into any dogma here, but again, I'll say this, as I've said before, if anybody tells you that they know for sure what happens, right, they're a liar or a fool. We don't know for sure, but we have some indications and there's some stuff. And one of the things I know for sure is I don't know for sure. But it does seem that we handle it very poorly in our society, certainly. That we do not talk about it. We do not want to address it. We leave things undone. People will trade anything for a few more minutes, right? And I used to have these strange thoughts. For example, like what if, right? We had this all wrong, right? We all complain, and one of the biggest complaints people have about when they hate God is, how could a loving God let little babies die, right? What if we have this all wrong, right? What if, for example, that death comes at the moment of realization, at the moment you suddenly figure things out, you know the meaning of life, you're done. That's it. So and if you're a child and you get that moment of realization early, man, hey, you win, right? You shortcut. You don't have to go through another 70 years of bullshit to get the prize. What if we had that all wrong, right? What if instead of being sad, we should be excited and celebrate the win? Touchdown, score! You did it. You figured it out. You son of a bitch. Maybe not, but I once had an idea for a novel. It came actually out of I think kind of a trip, one of the hallucinatory moments, right? Of a world in which, very much like our own, in which someone much like myself, right, gets interested and says, or like the Matrix, right? There's something wrong. There's something wrong with the world, and they go out in search and start falling down these rabbit holes of conspiracies and putting things together. And imagine, if you will, Dan Brown, you go in the Da Vinci Code, you're going down this rabbit hole until ultimately you get to a place of realizing, and this is this moment, right, of realizing that when you put all these things together, you have triggered a reset. The end of civilization, the end of the world, right? And there's this moment of realization that this is sort of like the old sci-fi novel, The Mote in God's Eye, that it triggers a reset. That this is that whoever designed the place put in a fail-safe mechanism that when things got so out of balance that there would be the situation would make itself occur, and someone would come along who would then be driven by the situation and all the things going on with this, exactly what we consider with the frequencies and resonance, that they would be driven obsessively to find out certain things and to put it together. And this was a universal failsafe that when things got so bad, one person would come along who had to find the answers. But when they put it all together, it was the key to turn the switch, to flip everything over. And there's that moment of, oh, shit. What have I done? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. And even in that moment, the moment of, I guess, self-preservation, right, of like, oh, I didn't really want to. Why are we so afraid? If there is something so good on the other side, why do we fear it so much? For myself, I have long determined that if I were faced with some dread disease, the big C or whatever, and it was determined to be terminal, that I would take no extraordinary measures. If there were changes to be made and I could do something in a natural way, Gerson method, something like that, that I would, sure. I'm not in a huge hurry to get out of here. But on the other hand, you've heard me say it before, don't threaten me with a good time, right? There is nothing here so sweet to make me want to stay now. And I don't mean to be negative Nelly, right? Or Debbie Downer in that regard. I think most of you understand where I'm coming from with that. But I think that we should, consider these things in some different ways, right? The psalmist said, right, where did I put this? Here, teach us to number our days so we can gain a heart of wisdom. Right, to understand that, I've heard it said, again, here's another argument, that if you're living for this, some next world, right, this argument against trusting in Dad, or the idea of salvation through sacrifice, that's a self-defeating thing that you're just going to give up, right? And I just don't, again, I don't see it that way, that it is, I'll cover this again at some point because there's some fascinating stuff in the book of Revelation, if you put any weight in those things, that I kind of see in a bit different way. But I certainly, again, if let me just come back here. If faced with my own mortality, and I might be, again, I'm not trying to be all, I'm just saying some stuff this week that made me go, oh, shit, right? Then what would come next? And it brought me to this place again of looking at what I have said of late with increasing, shrillness, urgency, that for those of us who claim to follow the truth, if we have come to this place of understanding that it is a spiritual battlefield that we have been born into, and that we must choose sides and choose the role that we wish to play, that if we are not focused on that, then what are we really doing, right? What does it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? If we know all the secrets of the universe and don't take one step closer to our Creator, what does it gain us? And so I've been, again, kind of considering some of these things, and also see, I actually took notes today, and that's now slowing me down. Here's something that I have noted before. I have often kind of grieved the fact that in modern society we lack this commitment to reputation as a valuable commodity. There once was a time when a family name was of such importance that people regularly would either run away or end their life or change their identity if they feared they might bring shame upon their family. not even out external pressure to do so, but if they thought they might bring shame upon their family, they would take proactive measures to correct it. That a person's reputation was their most valuable commodity, and that you would not be accepted into polite society if you were a cad. And now, of course, there is no such thing, and in fact, your cadliness is, in many cases, people's currency and their stock in trade. But ultimately, what is true is that your reputation is what people think of you, and your character is who you really are. Certainly, the reputation that I have to some people is not good. That doesn't change who I am. And there are other people who think probably too much of me. It doesn't change who I am. I still remain who I am, irrespective of what people think of me. And in some ways, I'd say it's none of my business, really, what they think of me. I certainly can't control it or change it. Many of us are compelled to spend a good portion of our lives and our emotional energy trying to control or change what other people think of us. I adjure you to give up on that. It is futile and unnecessary. So reputation is what people think of you. Character is what you are. And I prefer to invest in my character. One of the things that came to me in the last couple of weeks as I revisit some of the New Testament authors, specifically those, they're kind of tucked in, some of these just toward the end of the New Testament, just before the book of Revelation, specifically 1st and 2nd Peter, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, the book of James. This book of James is phenomenal. If I could get through the first 2 chapters of that and make that part of my life, I'd feel like I'd accomplished something. But one of the things that I noticed about these particular apostles were also disciples. Of course, Peter was Simon Peter, who walked with Jesus, denied him thrice, right? James, his brother, his half-brother, and John, the one who described himself in the gospel that he wrote as the one who Jesus loved. That's how he referred to himself. And I really like that. In any case, I noticed something peculiar in these books in several different translations. Each of them begin their letters, because these were letters written to various people, churches. They begin it by describing themselves. In some of the language it says a servant, but in many translations they describe it as bondservant or slave. Slave is the most commonly translated word there. A slave of Jesus Christ. And I thought, what a strange self-description, especially because in John chapter 14, Jesus specifically says, I no longer call you my servants, but my friends. And so they had every right to describe him as their friend, their brother, but certainly master, I suppose. But they specifically used this language, a slave. And I was fascinated by that thought, that they had the idea of like an indentured servant. This was common practice in early settlement colonization of the United States, in the story that we're told, the narrative that we're given, that you could, for the cost of transportation, it was very expensive. If you didn't have the money, you could become an indentured servant, work for a period of time, basically in conditions often worse than a slave, but then you would pay it off and get released. But bondservant, that's kind of what that is. But a slave, that you are not in command of your life. And think this through for a moment, what they're saying. Now, I have often described people that have what I call chinos, right? Christians in name only. Those who are cultural Christians. They join up because it's a group, right? Something bigger than themselves, and they want to feel a part of something. And certainly that gives them a moral authority, right? So they like to jump on board that. But there's this, idea that, well, I've likened it to, they run it like an app, right? They've got the Christian 2.0 app. And they bring it up from time to time. And what do I need to do to look like a good Christian? Put on that suit. It's an accessory item. And I have often said it's not an app, it's the operating system. It is the functionality. But I think their language is really descriptive in this idea that they are not self-directed or autonomous, and checking in from time to time and asking advice of the Creator. They have sold themselves into slavery such that every action is directed by another, and that they willfully carry this as their prime directive, that it is their sole purpose to behave as the property of another. Wow. Heady stuff, really. And I certainly think, well, I'm going to change. I'm going to change directions real quick, and hopefully I'll be able to tie it back together. One of the things that I have noticed as I get older, we were talking about it in the chat, how we all, as we become more vintage and our birthday suits need ironing, we're unhappy with the aging process. I like to say I unfriended it on Facebook. Not a fan of the aging process and all that entails. And it often seems like it's been said that youth is wasted on the young. My wife and I are we kind of constantly complain about this great cosmic joke about how when you're young, you think you've got it all figured out and you're going to go change the world and you've got all this energy, but you don't have a clue. You have no experience. We're just dumb. There's so many times I want to just reach back and reach across time and just slap the snot out of my younger self. But by the time you just about get things figured out, or at least a clue, you're just too tired to do much about it. And it's just not that important. And those things, your priorities have changed. You're more interested in just taking care of your family, right? And doing some good around you. And so you're like, yeah, kids, have fun storming the castle. And so we often discuss how, again, this is one of the things that has been done to us in society, that they have broken the generational bonds. That, again, as we looked for how would we fix this mess, and we figured out really quickly that the system isn't broken, it's fixed. So you can't fix it from the inside. You can't fix the system within the system. You have to replace it with something else entirely. And so we looked at all the different forms of government, if you want to say that, but different forms of societies. We came to tribal societies, so the First Nations being a really good model, intergenerational. The youngest people kind of did the work, a lot of the labor they learned. As you became adult, middle-aged, you did much of the labor there. You began to learn. They were the people who, the warriors, and as you get older, you have more knowledge, but you do less work, and you direct things, and then you become an elder, and you contain the wisdom. And each generation learns from the next. And they've broken those bonds now. You see it, and torn us apart, so that we're not connected, and so we fight against each other. And one of the things that I considered this week is that we do our youth a disservice in so many ways. And one of them that occurred to me is how when you're young, it seems like the younger you are, right? And how, consider how long a week seems when you're 5 years old. It's good. It's good. A week before you go to Disneyland. Oh my God, that's forever, right? When you're in high school, right? A month before you graduate. Oh, it's going to take forever. When you're in your 20s, 2 years before you can do. Oh my God, no way. That's forever. Now 2 years can go by in a blink of an eye for me. And similarly, when you're young, everything is super important. Again, when you're 5 years old, the loss of an ice cream cone can cause post-traumatic stress disorder. But relationships, romantic relationships in your teens, right? Oh my God, it's the end of the world. It's just the most important thing ever. And of course, as you get older and you see, it becomes less a percentage of your life, right? For someone who is 5 years old, a year represents 20% of their life. For someone who is 50 years old, it represents 2% of their life. So as you get older, you can be patient, and things, you take on a certain, again, patience and circumspection about things. They're of less importance. Someone slighting you, disrespecting you, it's not that big a deal, right? You don't have to go track them down and beat their ass because prove a point, right? You don't have to worry about that. But one thing that happens, unknowingly perhaps, is that as elders, we look and see these youth and they get all excited about things, and we can kind of be dismissive, right? Oh, you sweet summer child, right? And often, again, as parents, we see through the relationships that they're in. We try to discourage certain ones, and they, of course, the best way to get your daughter to date somebody is to say, "Don't date him," right? Because they're going to do what they want to do. That didn't happen to me, by the way. I'm just saying, but observation. It's kind of these truisms, right? And unfortunately, again, most parents screw up their kids not because they wanted to or intended to, but because they had no idea what to do. Again, we didn't have that intergenerational bonding. We didn't have the grandparents there to say, hey, I've got experience with this. We don't live in groups where you can get that extra help while you're out in the field and working to get to hunt and gather, to have the grandparents instill the tribal values in the kids. See, what's happened now is we've sent them off to the camp of our enemy. The ones who are our sworn enemy, the governments, who then indoctrinate our kids. And these days, I think many parents, even if they knew that, would be like, okay, yeah, just get them away from me. I need to live my life. Right? They're just trying to live their life still. They're young usually, and they just want to live their life. And the kids are an inconvenience and a burden and costly, and it's a hassle. I mean, they love their kids. Don't get me wrong, but it's not what it could be. And so again, boy, I'm not trying to be a downer today. That's not my intention. But in considering some of these things, I go, there must be a better way. But as I look at these things and consider what things are of value, what is important, really, right? What things have meaning. And for me, that's, again, investing in that next generation. But I think that it is, as we've looked around us and we've talked about how much effort do we now put with the world the way it is, and it seems like it will not change, but for the vector it's going, and with greater amplitude. Then what is the next move? How often do we try to get people into the lifeboats, or do we just launch those lifeboats, right? Is it time? I cannot say for anyone else what that ought be, because it's not my journey. But I can say for me, while recent events have been an interruption and certainly a surprise, I think probably in some ways, again, a much needed wake-up call about how to proceed and whom and how to do that and confirm some things. One thing I will say, again, is there is some gratitude in the silver lining that when faced with immensely difficult circumstances for myself or others whom I love, that it seems that there is nothing I can do but pray. The first thing I do is go straight to Dad, and there is nothing better for me than to spend an inordinate amount of time in the presence of the Creator. Nothing I'd rather do. So that's a positive. When things go bad, that's the first place I go. So again, always the silver lining, I suppose. But I think that it is clear that triping up and trying to make a go of that is the only way for me forward. Caution is clearly necessary. But for those of you who are still into that, yeah, I'm still into that. That part hasn't changed. So we'll continue to pursue that avenue. Oh, I wanted to, I think I'll mostly wrap there. Other than maybe to present this idea. This is part of my notes about why perhaps we're so fearful of the unknown and death, right? Is it just that we are afraid of the unknown, or is there something perhaps deep within that our spirit that knows that there is accountability, there is someone watching, and we are accountable for our actions. And maybe that discomfiture is a warning sign. Okay, let's shift gears for a moment and do this because I don't want to leave on on that note. If, as I mentioned before, every morning at 4:20 on the West Coast, I do Freaky Freaks on Rockfin. And what is that? Again, solfeggio, chakra, biofield, sonic tuning, using tuning forks, that sort of stuff. I get very into it. It's a delightful thing. I had one of the questions, someone asked if they wanted to share some things. Do I ever do a free version? Yeah, I have, and I'll probably do more on YouTube when I get some parts and pieces added. I keep trying to update and change things. But it is a lot of fun, and if you're not part of the Rockfin community over there, again, I recommend it. You can get a lot of truth stuff going on over there. I'm going to give you just a couple of moments, demonstration of like what's going on, what that's about, because I just like it. I just dig it. So basically, we got a singing bowl. Oh, I gotta add that. There we go. All right. And then, so I've got the singing bowl and then some tuning forks. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of this and kind of show you what it's about. I'll come back and explain, and then we'll say la-ti-da, and we'll send you on your merry way. All right, here we go. So anyway, not only does it sound cool, but what we're finding is, for many of us, we find physiological manifestations of all kinds, increased ability to focus, and I'm finding, because in part because I guess I'm paying attention and in physical proximity to them, but also that it becomes almost kind of a divination tool. People get nervous about that, but whether it's tarot cards or reading the sheep entrails or casting the tea leaves, what have you, everything is interconnected. And when you kind of really focus and listen to these things and the subtle changes, you can get a sense of what's going on for the day. And I find that every time I do this again, every morning and every day, it does seem to manifest itself the day in a way that it's consistent with whatever occurs that morning. It's fascinating stuff. Difficult to explain, and I make no claims about why exactly that might be. I can speculate a bit, I suppose, but it's fascinating stuff. And if you're interested, come visit, and do that every morning at 4:20-ish. Basically after I make my coffee, and usually with a little bit of noodles on the side. And so there you have it. Guys, I'm so thankful and so grateful for each of you for coming here each week, and I'm so grateful for the community that we've built. And I apologize for distractions in the last few weeks. I don't know why, other than I think it was supposed to happen. It was something that, again, brings some clarity for me, and to know what I need to do next. And I'm figuring that out. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And I love you all. This is, you guys are family. And so, as I do each week, I will leave you with one of the old songs. And if you haven't heard Flat Accord Music in our community here, did a cover song of, I played that last week, a cover song of one of Joe and I's old numbers. And so he'll be posting that, I think, this weekend. So thanks for that. It's pretty awesome, and I feel very honored that he did that. I'm going to leave you with this one from, I think, about 1994. Song again, Joe and Jim and I wrote, called More Than I've Ever Seen. And I'll leave you with this one, and I hope to see you again tomorrow morning. If you want to join us for Freaky Freaks, we'll be over there. And I'll be back for Ancient Wisdom for A Modern World coming up at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Oh, you're sad? Don't be sad. No. Don't be sad. Come back for Ancient Wisdom. It'll be good. All right, guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you again tomorrow.
Still burns inside with a light that I cannot hide. I walk on the edge of time, ride the winds of destiny. I hear the thunder's coming, bringing me to my knees, like nothing I've ever seen. In my mind I hear the voices calling. In my mind I see the planets collide. In my mind I feel the end beginning. It's like waking up from a dream. It's more than I've ever seen. Shadows fall like angels' tears, leaves darkness on every